Week 4, we're going to talk about fundraising. This is the one presentation that I wish we could do face-to-face because there'd be so many fun and interesting things we could do with money to learn more about fundraising and about funding the ministries that God has called us to. We could put the fun into fundraising if we were face-to-face. All of leadership is stewardship. The mission and vision, the power and authority, organizational culture, relationships, lives, time, resources, all of those are stewardships that have been placed in our hands when we are a leader of a group. As the president of the college, the board has placed the stewardship of the college into my hands, and that includes the mission, the vision, the power and authority that comes with the office, the organizational culture, the relationships, the lives, the time, the resources, all of that. And the truth is that all ministry needs money. I'd love to see a show of hands. Is there anyone in the class that has enough money to do everything that you have as vision to do? My hunch is that not one hand would go up. The truth is that mission and margin are inseparable. And every leader needs to have a funding plan of how are you going to provide the resources? How can you raise the needed money to see your mission accomplished and your vision become reality? And so the work of a leader is to provide the resources. And you do that in many ways. And one of the ways is engaging with people, building relationships, and encouraging them to give money to your cause. Like this cartoon says, I'd like you to meet Irving R. Simmons. He's heading up our stewardship drive, and we thought a nice monogram briefcase would make his job easier. IRS. Yes, it just might. So, I want to give you the 7 simple steps, 7 simple principles and ideas, the simple 7 I call them, of raising money or fundraising. The basic things to remember about it. Oliver Wendell Holmes once said, I would not give a fig for simplicity on this side of complexity, but I would give my right arm for simplicity on the other side of complexity. And so what I want to give you are 7 simple basic things to remember when trying to raise money for your organization or ministry. Number 1, get your own stewardship act together. If you haven't put together how you live out financial stewardship, if you haven't thought through how to be a generous person, how to live your faith out, if you haven't done that, then it's going to be really hard to raise money from other people. And like this picture shows, so often we think that everything else we give to God, but not the checkbook. And I would like to say that the checkbook is baptized as well. And so the first thing that every person who raises funds for ministry needs to do is they need to make sure that their own stewardship act is together. And they have thought through what it is that stewardship means and how they practice it in their own lives. So let me give you a little quiz here. Here are 10 questions. I'd like you to answer each question with just a yes or no and count the yeses. I need more money than I can ever use. Yes or no? It bothers me when I discover I could have gotten the same thing for less somewhere else. I behave as if money were the ultimate symbol of success. I show signs of nervousness when I don't have enough money. I dream I will one day be fabulously rich. I find it difficult to part with money for any reason. I worry that I will not have enough money to live comfortably when I retire. Money controls the things I do or don't do in my life. When I was a child, money seemed to be the most important thing in my life. I argue or complain about the cost of things. So how many yeses did you have? If you only had one, then money doesn't control your life. If you had 4 or 5 yeses, then it has a moderate control. But if you answered 6 or 7 times yes to these questions, it has a strong control. And 8 or above, it has complete control. That's not good stewardship. Biblical understanding of stewardship and fundraising is that we have so we can give. God has blessed us so that we can give our resources away. And we are most like God when we give. The story is told of a World War II soldier that was walking along the street, and he happened to see a little boy peering through the windows into a bakery, and the baker was baking bread. And the soldier walked up beside the little boy and looked with him through the window, then looked down at the boy and said, "Would you like some?" The little boy's eyes brightened and said, "Oh, yes, sir." And so the GI went in, bought a loaf of bread, came back out, gave it to the boy, and continued walking down the street. A little bit later, suddenly he felt a tug on his coat. And he looked, and there was the little boy. And he looks at the GI and he says, "Mister, are you God?" We are most like God when we give. And we need to remember that everything we have and are belongs to God. Everything we have and all that we are, it all belongs to God. That's true for me. It's true for you. It's true for all the people that we talk to. And we live and give in response to God. All of my stewardship is because of how God has given to me, and so I give to others. But here's the real kicker. We are happiest and most fulfilled when we give. When we give, something happens in our lives. That's a biblical understanding of stewardship. And that is the act that we need to get together. Number 2, remember the 4 C's of fundraising. See the people, see the people, see the people, see what God will do. There is no substitute to call on people on a regular basis. We call on people continuously at Tabor College, and we simply get out and see the people, and we see the people, and we see the people. You know, in real estate, they say there are 3 things that are important: location, location, location. In fundraising, it's see the people, see the people, see the people. And then see what God will do. And the stories that you begin to collect of just getting out and seeing the people, and they're saying, "Thank you for coming." And God moves in their hearts, and they decide to give. Number 3, listen to your donors. The people that are contributors to your ministry. Listen to what they tell you. And if you listen carefully, they will tell you what they like to give to, when they are ready to give, and how much they are thinking about giving. I remember visiting with a person one time, and he had told me very early on when I first met him, he said, "Jules, I'm not giving you a dime." I said, "Fine. I just would like to be your friend." And so we established a relationship. And I met with him many times and went to his cabin with him and hung out with him and saw all the things that he was involved in. He told me about how he loved camping, and when I asked him what's his philanthropic interest, he would say, "Oh, camping was what he wanted to do and give to." And so I just listened, and then he told me a story about he tried to give a $500,000 gift to a camp, and they refused it because they refused to improve the camp in the way that he wanted to. We kept visiting and talking, but just that story, I now knew how much I should ask him for when the time was right. I also knew that he liked to give to programs that would help build young men and women. That was his goal. That's what we did. And I kept visiting with this person. And then one day he told me about how his wife was beginning to have Alzheimer's. And he wanted to do something to honor her. And he'd been thinking. I presented to him a project that we had, and I asked him to give $500,000. He said he wanted to think about it. Make a long story short, he gave $2.3 million to the project. But by listening to him, I knew what he liked to give to. I knew when he was ready to give, and it was time for me to ask. And I knew how much he was thinking about giving, and then somehow his heart was deeply moved and he gave more. Listen to your donors. 4, become their friend. Donor relationship is all about friendship. Most wealthy people do not have a lot of friends. And so the core, the foundation again, just like it was of teams, the foundation of fundraising is your relationships with the people. Love them, listen to them, care for them, remember them, do things for them. Send them birthday cards, call on them when they're at their anniversary. If you have listened well to them, you know the different times in their life that they are doing things, and then do things with them. Become their friend. And above all, practice the golden rule with them. If they are wealthy, there's a good chance that they've been mistreated. There's also the possibility in some cases that they've mistreated others too. And so practice the golden rule. Do to them the way you would want them to do to you. When you talk about a gift, when you talk about money, imagine that you're talking to yourself. Practice the golden rule. It's a great way to become their friend. Number 5, develop the friendship that you've started. Pat McLaughlin breaks it down into 6 different types of calls that you make when you call on someone. They all start with R, the 6 R's: research, romance, request, report, recognition, recruit. The advancement and development team at Tabor College, this is the language that we use. Whenever we go out and call on someone, what kind of call is it going to be? Are we researching to find out information about them so we know how much to ask, what they're interested in, what they like to do? Or are we romancing them, just building the relationships, having a good time, preparing the soil for a future ask? And then comes me, there's the request. And I'll talk a little bit more about the science of the request. And then once you made the request and the gift has been given, you report back to them. We have one of the major donors in our new Center for the Arts on campus is just thrilled with what happens at chapel. So every so often in chapel, when I see something that really is happening, I simply take a picture, I text it to them, and I say, I just want you to know this is what's happening in the chapel that you helped us build. Excuse me. Report to them and then recognize them. Now this one you have to listen. Some people want a lot of recognition, some do not. But all of them want to be appreciated. Sometimes the recognition is a simple thank you and a handwritten note at that. I spend some weeks 2 to 3 hours a week just writing handwritten thank yous to everyone who has given to Tabor College $1,000 or more that week. And then finally, recruit. When you are developing the friendship, find out who else they know that they could introduce you to, who in turn could then you do research on, romance request, and keep the circle going. So develop the friendship and remember the 6 R's. Number 6, you have to ask. It doesn't just happen. And here is kind of the science of the ask. First comes the setup call. When you call them, if you have become their friend and you have been romancing them, then you get together and do a lot of things. Go out and eat, go on a trip together, enjoy each other's company, just hang out together, but you've become friends with them. But when it's time to make an ask, when you call or text, and what I usually do is I text first, can I call you? And they'll say, yeah, or in 10 minutes, or no, I can't talk right now. Then you don't want to bother them. And they say, well, I'll call you when I can find. But text them to make the call and say, I would like to come talk to you about. And everybody knows that this time you're going to talk about money. And this time you are going to be asking them to give to your cause. And then be prepared. So you set up the call. They know you're coming to ask about whatever campaign you're in. Then be prepared. Know whatever it is you need to know about the person, about the project, about what is happening, about the progress in the project. Be prepared when you walk in and begin the call. And then comes the face-to-face call. Now you can do it by phone, you can do it by text. I've raised lots of money by using text. I remember the $100,000 gift I got where it was all done by text because this donor wanted it to be with text. And he was the one that kept texting me about things regarding a gift. At the end, I simply text back, are you ready to make the gift? And he goes, yes, I am. I will have 100,000 sent to you by this date. But best is the face-to-face. Look him in the eye, make a visit. Letters are great things, but they don't bring in as much money as a face-to-face call. And then comes a presentation. When you are with them, present the case. Avoid restaurants when you make a presentation. Avoid the living room when you make a presentation. That's for romance. That's for research. But when you're making a visit for a request, sit down at the kitchen table. You will have papers, you will have a brochure or a flyer, you might have your iPad and pictures of the project, you might have a little video that you want to play, but sit around a table. There's something about a table where you sit there and you're talking that gives it that professional feel that we're talking about something serious. And then comes the ask. At one point in the conversation, you simply say, would you be willing to give? It's always good if you can put an exact amount in and make the request larger than what you think they could give. Give them the freedom to stretch or to say, no, I'll give X. I remember in one of the calls I made in this last campaign, we were sitting down and I shared with him the plan and I asked if he would give $150,000 to this project. He looked at me and he said, why would you ask that? I said, well, I don't know. And he said, I'll give you 75. Fine, thank you. That's a very nice gift. I left. A couple years later in the project, we didn't have enough to finish it debt-free, so went back to him again. And I said, would you be willing to make another gift? And he said, Jules, yes. When you asked me to give $150,000, I knew right then that that was the amount that God wanted me to give. And I've been waiting for you to come back. Make an ask, put a number to it, and make it larger than what you think it should be. And once you make the ask, be quiet. Would you be willing to give 20,000, 10,000? Would you be willing to give $5,000 to this cause? The next person who speaks loses. If you speak, you've lost the gift. If they speak, they've lost the money. Once you make an ask, be silent. I have sat a minute waiting for the next person to talk. And it is long and it is agonizing. And I've had them stare at me like, you have got to be kidding that you're going to be asking me for this much. But if you talk, you've lost part of the gift, if not all of it. And then follow up. Always follow up. Follow up with reports, follow up with saying thank you, follow up, keep the relationship going. Remember, you've built a friendship. And so the ask was just one piece in the friendship. And then you go back to the friendship mode as well. So number 6, you have to ask. And number 7 is, in your presentation, answer 3 questions. Why us? Why me? Why now? You have to answer the donor that is asking, why are you asking me for this money? So you have to answer that in some way. And then, why should I give the money to you? And then, why are you asking me now? So why should they give it to you and your cause? Why is he the one that or she the one that should give it? And why now? Can it wait? Those are 7 questions. Those are 3 questions that you need to ask to make it work. Fundraising made simple. 7 basic things to remember when raising money for your organization.